Hey everyone, this is Representative Scott Clem, and I wanted to show you a clip here, and just to show you the kind of the craziness that's going on in the world. Of course, you're aware of it, and I have been pounding and beating this drum for a long time, and that government is practicing tyranny right now. It is trying to curtail your rights. It believes that it is fit to tell you what you can and cannot do, and believes that it is the more responsible entity to tell you how to take care of yourself, which is exactly what the opposite is true. Of course, you are the one entrusted with expansive freedoms under the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. You are the one who is supposed to practice personal responsibility, and you are the one who is supposed to keep yourself safe. And so I want you to see what this governor is doing in the state of New Jersey. He's on Tucker Carlson Tonight. This was last night, and I'll pause it here and there to give some feedback here on some of the things that I think of this. I think you'll find this absolutely mind-boggling. Take a listen.
Let me ask you about the specific measures you just referred to. Now, large gatherings are banned, but liquor stores are deemed an essential service. Why, on the basis of what scientific evidence did you decide that?
Couple of things. One is there are liquor stores in our state that actually have a little bit too many backroom gatherings. So we had a little bit of a challenge. We had to remind folks that liquor stores may be open, but to your point, gatherings are not allowed. We relied on a whole lot of reasonable input from recovery coaches, addiction coaches, and they cautioned us if we were to shutter those stores down, we'd have unintended mental health and addiction prices to pay, unintended consequences. And so far, that's the route we've taken, and my guess is we'll continue to take that route.
So, but you have closed church services and synagogue services and arrested people for attempting to attend them. Did anyone say that maybe practicing your faith might be important to someone's mental health?
And this is where you start to see things kind of unwind and come unglued. There's no rhyme or reason as far as liquor stores staying open, but churches and synagogues and people practicing their faith and finding healing and making sense of the world through spirituality. That's taboo, right? You can't do that, but you can go out and you can get blazing drunk if you want to. Take a listen to what he says.
Listen, I think we've had a very good common ground with faith leaders of literally every faith who understand this. And by the way, whether it's
Sure, they understand that liquor stores are open and they are closed.
Liquor store, a pharmacy, a supermarket, we expect folks to distance themselves from each other, to wear face coverings, etc. There's an enormous amount of faith going on virtually right now, a lot of practicing going on.
There's an enormous amount of drinking apparently going on too.
And we care deeply about both physical health and mental health.
Of course, but I don't want to be too persistent on this, but I think it's important. On what scientific basis did you decide that sitting in a church was much more dangerous than buying liquor in a liquor store? And
did you listen to the question again? On what scientific basis did he decide that a church is more dangerous than a liquor store? Okay, this is not just a question really for him, but this is a question for almost every governor in the United States who put on some kind of gathering ban. Why is that more dangerous than going to a liquor store?
And why is buying liquor more important for the social fabric? I'm just trying to think. You're not the only governor who's done this, and I don't mean to pick on you, but I don't understand the reasoning. I don't want to think it had anything to do with tax revenues.
No, it does not have anything to do with tax revenues. Our revenues are so blown up, that would be a rounding error, trust me. This is not either or. It can be and both. I've spoken to Cardinal Tobin, to the leaders of the Jewish community, of the Muslim community. People are at peace where we have come out there. No one's...
People are at peace. So he's speaking on behalf of the people. And see, this is the arrogance, the ignorance of a man like this who is sitting in office, because he thinks he has the power as the governor of his state to tell people how to act and how to behave and how to live their lives. He thinks that the government or the Constitution rather, gives the government these expansive freedoms to tell you, the little people, the subjects, what to do. And this is how these people act like. This is a little tyrant that you're seeing on this screen. He is a little tyrant. He's not fit for office. He is an enemy of the Constitution. Listen.
Happy. Everyone wants to get back to what they think of as the norm, and who could blame them?
Yeah,
I want to do that as well. But I don't think these are one versus the other. I think you can have both of these realities at the same time, and that's what we have.
I agree. I think you can have both at the same time, too. Open up churches. Come on, Governor. It's not either or, it's and in both. Let people practice their personal responsibility. You as the governor stress the importance of social distancing and the seriousness of this disease. But then you let people make the choices, not you. You're not fit to do that. You're not God over people's lives. You are a little tyrant.
In New Jersey right now.
So why, back a couple of weeks ago, you closed state parks and people have been arrested for using them. A man was arrested for sitting alone on the beach. Tell me why
alone on the beach.
That poses a danger. And again, on what scientific basis did you make that decision?
Yeah, so Tucker, we were coming into both warm weather and big religious seasons. It was.
Did you catch that? Big religious season. So he's basically gonna tell him the answer. He's gonna say, well, look, we didn't want religious gatherings in our parks, and Passover and Easter were coming up, so we went ahead and we stopped all those kind of things altogether because we don't want people practicing their faith. Why? Because we as government can tell you when to practice and what to practice and how to practice, because we are smarter than you, the little people, and we are going to take the place and authority of God in telling you how you can or cannot worship.
It was Passover first, then Easter. We've got Ramadan coming up shortly. In certain of the counties were beginning to close their parks. And the concern was that the folks who couldn't go to their normal park would go to another park, another county or a state park. And it wasn't just a gut feel. We then surveilled the state, up and down the state on that first weekend of April when we had some good weather in New Jersey. And in fact, that was just what we saw. Lots of people congregating, lots of out-of-state license plates. So it was a step, trust me, I took no joy in taking that step. But it's one that we felt we had to take. And as I mentioned
one we felt that we had to take. Why? Because we think that we have the ability, the power to go ahead and tell people what to do and to live their lives vicariously for them. This is what this is the mentality of people in our world today. This is the people that you elected in New Jersey. This man is an enemy of the people. He is an enemy of the Constitution. Why? Do I believe he sincerely cares about people? Sure, I do. Otherwise, I don't think he'd be doing what he's doing. Then again, I think he probably is playing the political game here, and he's just trying to placate the public. But what he is doing is he's putting himself as the person who has expansive powers and freedoms. And that's not him. That's not government. That's you, people. That's you. It's not his role to tell you what to do or to force you to do something. Of course, he can tell you, he can suggest, but to force you to do something under threat of imprisonment or fine, that is outside of the realm of the Constitution. It's completely unconstitutional. It's tyranny.
Bunch of legislators today, it's not a life sentence.
Okay, but on what basis? What scientific? Because I'm just trying to get to the science here, because I assume all of us are following the lead of epidemiologists. Arresting someone for sitting alone on the beach, tell me how that arrests the spread of the coronavirus from an epidemiological point of view.
Yeah,
it doesn't. It's all about power and control, and he wants the power and control, and not the citizens.
Yeah, I wasn't referring to that. I actually don't have the specifics as to why that happened. I meant congregation at state and county parks, of which there was an enormous amount when the weather got warm. And the fact that folks weren't, it's not that they couldn't be in the park and jogging by themselves or walking on their own and keeping distance. They weren't. And there were a lot of out-of-state license plates in the parking lot, and we've got some of the nicest parks in the Northeast, if not the country. Again, it brings me no joy, but we felt that was the right decision to make.
Because Big Brother knows best.
So you made that decision, and as I noted before, 15 congregants at a synagogue in New Jersey were arrested and charged for being in a synagogue together. Now, the Bill of Rights, as you well know, protects Americans' right, enshrines their right to practice their religion as they see fit and to congregate together, to assemble peacefully. By what authority did you nullify the Bill of Rights in issuing this order? How do you have the power to do that?
That's above my pay grade, Tucker, so I wasn't...
That's above your pay grade? You're the governor. That is your business, to uphold the law. The Constitution of your state and the United States is law. When you put your hand up and you put your other hand upon the Bible and you took that oath of office, you swore to uphold and defend and to protect the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of your state. And you're not upholding it. You're obliterating it. You are usurping it. And you have no authority to do that whatsoever. And this is what he's trying to expose, what Tucker is trying to expose. No authority whatsoever, and yet he's acting like he can. By what authority? You think I'm wrong on this? I'd love to hear from you, as this video goes out there. You think I'm wrong on this? Then you tell me by what authority he can go ahead and usurp the Constitution and take away people's rights. Because we don't have in the Constitution somewhere where it says in cases of pandemic, everything goes out the window. In fact, the only way that you can have you be arrested of your rights or have your rights taken away is through due process, in which you're charged and convicted of a crime and the government has the preponderance or has to bring the evidence against you. You're considered innocent until proven guilty. And then only then can you have your rights taken away. But of course that hasn't happened. Have all Americans been arrested? Have all Americans been tried and convicted of some crime that we don't know about? No due process has taken place. Keep listening.
I wasn't thinking of the Bill of Rights when we did this.
I wasn't thinking of the Bill of Rights when we did this. Now there's an honest assessment right there, because this guy doesn't think. He's a sheep. He's a follower. One governor somewhere decided that they were going to usurp the Constitution based upon their own feelings and their own gut and not upon objective law. And as a consequence, you have many other governors who are like sheep and followed in their footsteps.
First of all, we looked at the data and the science, and it says people have to stay away from each other. That's the best thing we could do to break the back of the curve of this virus that leads to lower hospitalization.
And why do they have to stay away? Well, because the medical community said so. Okay, so the medical community is higher than the Constitution. The medical community is higher than God. I guess we have to listen to them. I'm not saying that the medical community isn't smart and we shouldn't give them credence on what they say, but that doesn't mean that we can curtail the Constitution.
And ultimately fatalities.
And I'm not contesting that, though. I think I do think there's a debate. This is a rolling conversation because we're learning new things every day, and nothing is settled at this point.
Understood.
But I do want, since you are an elected official, a leader in the government, an executive, how do you have the authority to order something that so clearly contravenes the Bill of Rights of the United States, the U.S. Constitution? Where do you get the authority to do that?
Well, here's the thing. We know we need to stay away from each other, number one.
He doesn't have an answer. Here's the thing. We got to stay away from each other. That's my authority. My authority is we've got to stay away from each other, and government knows best, and we have the power, so we're going to make people stay away from each other. Yeah, that's not exactly what the Constitution says. The Constitution says that people are the ones entrusted with expansive freedoms, and it's governments like yours who are limited and have enumerated powers, and you are usurping people's rights.
One. Number two, we do have broad authority within the state. And number three, we would never do that without coordinating, discussing, and hashing it out with the leaders, the variety of the leaders of the faiths in New Jersey. We are among, if not the most diverse state in America,
I'm sure that you talk to every rabbi and priest, but there's a deeper question here, and I'm just going to ask you one last time because I think it's important. I'm sure you've thought about this. You can't just, as the governor of a state, tell people who they can talk to when and where, because the Constitution of the United States, upon which all of this is based, prohibits you from doing that. So you clearly decided that you could do it. Did you consult an attorney about this? Did you? I mean, because this is a legal question as well as a medical one, isn't it?
I don't go to the men's room without consulting an attorney, so I guarantee you we did that. But I'll give you an example that was not related.
He didn't do that. And of course, he's dodging the question once again. He is not going to tell you by what authority he can usurp people's rights. He's not going to tell you because he doesn't have the authority to do so. He is a tyrant who needs to be thrown out of office on his head. He does not deserve to sit on that in that seat as governor. He doesn't. He is a usurper. He is an enemy of the Constitution. And until such time he reverses it, really it's incumbent upon the people to practice civil disobedience for the good of the Constitution. I'm talking about peaceful civil disobedience. I'm not talking about violence or anything like that, not advocating for that. But when you have tyrants like this, it is incumbent upon us to practice peaceful civil disobedience for the good of the Constitution.
In the synagogue, I called up Cardinal Tobin, Cardinal Joe Tobin in Newark. There are 5 or 6 archdioceses in New Jersey. It was coming up to Easter and Holy Week in particular. And I said, listen, I'm really concerned about drive-through Holy Communion because we had heard some stories.
And he can be concerned. He is the governor. He has every right to be concerned. But what's next here is he's going to go one step further. He's going to go and tell people then how to worship because he thinks he has the authority to do that. He's going to change the way that people worship. And now you have government crossing that red line of church and state, telling churches how to worship, when to worship, what to worship, that kind of thing. That's essentially what this guy is doing.
It's about priests who unwittingly had the virus and unwittingly passed it on to parishioners. And he said, we're not doing that. I promise you, and I'll confirm that with my fellow bishops. That's not denying someone their right to worship in any way, that we have to find a different way to worship. I think that's the...
See, and that's just it. It's totally fine. You know, if those priests wanted to voluntarily do that and say, hey, we're going to do things different, then that's fine. They answer to God. It's God who's their authority as far as the church is concerned. But it's not government. The government is not the authority over church. And did you listen to his last statement? We've got to figure out a different way to worship. Says who? The government? So the government's going to start telling other churches how they can and cannot worship, which is essentially what he's done. That's why 15 people were arrested in a synagogue, because this man is a tyrant.
The point. God bless America.
Yeah, we're not. Government's not allowed to tell people how to worship. Just as a sort of factual matter. Last question, sincere question.
You think so?
So these orders, which again I'm presuming and I believe were taken in good faith under trying circumstances, have nevertheless, and you just said it, have resulted in an awful lot of suffering. 577,000 New Jerseyans on unemployment. Doubtless the suicide rate will increase. The addiction rate will increase. Liquor stores are open, as we noted. How much does that weigh on you, that the suffering that this lockdown has caused might equal or perhaps outweigh?
What do you think he's going to answer? How much does this weigh on you? Of course he's going to give you the politically correct answer. Oh, this weighs heavily on me. But does it really? Because think about this. Has he really considered the ramifications of a shutdown economy? He has not talked about one bit the real and physical harm of unemployment. People die because of unemployment. Domestic violence rises. You have suicide that rises. You have substance abuse, obviously liquor stores, right, that are open that rises. You have a drain on government resources at a time when people are looking for more services, and your tax revenues are going down. And so none of those things have been talked about or contemplated by this piece of work because he simply has not talked about it or thought about it. He has not weighed that into consideration. But he's going to say, yeah, oh, this weighs heavily on me. Just listen, watch.
What the virus does. Do you think about that?
It weighs heavily, and you ask yourself every day, are you making the right decision? And the answer is this. Twofold, Tucker. One is we continue to make every call based on the facts, the data, the science.
The facts, the data, and the science. The facts, like the Constitution, because that is fact. That's objective truth. That's not a suggestion. We're not basing it off of that. We haven't looked at any data or when it comes to the economy, because that hasn't been talked about at all. And as far as the science, I mean, we don't actually even know how many people are truly infected because we haven't been able to test the amount of folks. In fact, there's many studies out there that suggest that for those that have tested those with, as far as antibodies are concerned, that as many as 15% of the population has already had this, and many of them didn't even know they were infected with COVID-19 because they were either had very, very minor symptoms or they had no symptoms. They were asymptomatic. So this isn't driven by science, facts, and data. This guy is politically correct, and he's fear-mongering. He's putting it out there to the people, and naive Americans are going to listen to this nonsense.
Best we can. And secondly, I look at what we're doing versus the alternative. And I know that the alternative, had we stepped back and let this virus run amok, 3+ million people in our state would have been infected, and the healthcare system that would have had no chance to have kept up with that, and the fatalities would have been multiple. So each life lost is a precious life lost. Let there be no doubt about it.
And I would agree with him there. Every life lost is a precious life lost, and we don't want to minimize or trivialize that in any sense. But again, when you have unemployment like we have, that leads to loss of life too. And of course, he has not factored that into consideration. And it's not just him. It's several other governors around these United States, and they're acting like tyrants. I mean, you look at the other governor in Michigan, Governor Gretchen Whitmer is her name, and she is another tyrant. And of course, the people are rising up there and practicing civil disobedience. Why? Because she is an absolute tyrant, even going as far as telling people what they can and cannot buy in a store, because she gets to determine, as the governor, what is essential and what is non-essential. Apparently, gardening and self-sufficiency and buying seeds is not essential during this time. She is a tyrant. She also needs to be booted out of office. But at the end of the day, when you think about this, it's an either-or proposition for them. Well, we either had to let COVID-19 run through our population rampantly, and we weren't going to do anything about it, or we're going to go to the other complete extreme, and we're going to put in all of these safeguards. And I submit to you that you could have done something different, and that is as the governors of his state and governors all around these United States, they have an obligation to stress the seriousness of this, but they also have to remain under the bounds of their limited powers as enshrined in the Constitution. They don't have ultimate authority. It's the people who are enshrined with those who are given those expansive authorities and freedoms, and it's their decision to make. And there are things government can do, but it's not an either-or proposition. We don't do anything, or we do absolutely everything there is under the sun. There is a middle ground, and we have not done that. And as a result, this economy right now is the result of these governors, and the result even of our president, of shutting things down the way that they have, especially more so the governors. I am proud of President Trump trying to reopen things back up, because he actually sees what we're doing right now and how this is going to take decades to recover from. We are entering the new depression. This is going to be the Greater Depression because of idiots like this man. He is a tyrant, and I guess the old saying is people deserve the government that they vote for, and this is what you all deserve there in New Jersey. You deserve better, you really do. And many other states, you deserve better as well. Michigan, and any other state that does these things. And so with that, I would encourage you to stay safe out there and fight for your freedoms. Take care.